Just when we thought the fight was over, another player plugs in. Here's a look at the Jada toys. This is the Street Fighter II, the Final Challengers, the P2 Player 2 Target exclusive. This 6-inch Guile action figure captures the essence of the Street Fighter II hero, features distinctive flat-top haircut and combat-ready military attire. The exclusive Player 2 variant, exclusive version of Guile in his alternate color scheme, making it a must-have for collectors and fans of Street Fighter. I guess we'll get this review underway by taking the tape measure and seeing how tall the Player 2 version of Guile stands. Questions I'm sure are already abroad of you guys asking how would you have gotten your hands on this if this is a Target exclusive. The answer to that question though is Popeye the Toy Man. He actually had one available over on his Facebook selling group and I grabbed him right away. I'm not sure though how many of these Player 2 characters I really would like to get. I did though at the same time of getting this Guile. I also got my hands on the other version of Bison, so we're going to be looking at him in an upcoming review. But if, in the meantime, though, you guys are interested and would like to get this one for yourself, and you're nowhere near, though, a Target store, best thing I would certainly suggest is checking online. Facebook selling groups are a good place to grab figures like this that normally you wouldn't be able to grab. Back though to Guile and his flat top. You're looking at the figure standing 6¼ inches in height, or roughly 16 centimeters tall. If you had picked out your player already as Guile, then the game would have picked out this color. The defaulted green color would have been the regular release of the figure, and then the Player 2 release that we're looking at in this review again is a Target exclusive. From the build of the body and the molding, they seem to be the same. Speaking though of Bison, even though we aren't looking at him just yet, here's the regular version of Bison, as you probably can already see. Unfortunately, he's relegated to a display stand. Still can't quite get that figure to stand properly. As for other figures we can also bring in as well, here's what the Player 2 version of Guile, obviously, yeah, it looks like next to Chun-Li and Cammy. And hey, why not? Here's also, even though Player 2 was also available for Ken, one thing that was interesting, though, about Ken is not just that the colors changed of him, but he also got an additional energy effect. Ryu has had many rounds as well when it comes to different costume colors. I still stick, though, with the white one. I'm not really sure, though, how many color variations of Ryu I really need to get. Unfortunately, doing things in blue is about the only things that Guile does differently than the original. In fact, all the actual lay of the land is exactly the same between the two figures. Like, for example, he does come included with a clear acrylic display stand, and it does have an adjustable neck that adjusts actually in 2 different knuckle joints. Take the 2 and plug them together. And once you get those together, the figure does also come included with a sonic boom attack. Now, looking at this, it's the exact same one as, let's just grab off to the one on the side here and just bring in the other one. They're exactly the same. Looking at this also, it doesn't look like a shell cracker, like if you got yourself lobster or crab at a very fancy restaurant. Even buffets do this as well. You get yourself the little cracker thing and it basically cracks the shells, and they generally kind of look like a lobster claw. I don't know why I'm segueing off to thinking about buffets and crab claws, but yeah, looking at the 2 though, they're exactly the same. There's nothing at all that's been done differently. I mean, short of just the fact that this one has to be attached onto the display stand. Look for the hole, and then the hole basically just plugs onto the end like that, and they're now exactly the same. I suppose maybe if you wanted to, you could have more than one attached or displayed alongside a Guile. I really think that this could have also been an opportunity. Now, I don't know how far down, really, when it comes to Jada Toys and what they're really wanting to do with Street Fighter, if a deluxe version of Guile could maybe be something in a foreseeable future. If that was the case, I would love to see him be released with other attack powers, as opposed to just always using the sonic boom. I think really with the blue version of Guile, as certainly a nudge in the direction of wanting to get a figure like this, if they had just, for example, included a different weapon or a different energy attack, I think that would certainly have been, again, a nudge that someone may have needed to get a figure that they had maybe no interest to get in the past. That being said, though, the figure does also come included with some swappable hands, the exact same, for that matter, as the original Guile. He comes with a hand for holding the comb, and he comes with a hand that's basically for styling his hair. To swap those hands out are super easy, as they always really are. Just take the hand and wiggle it off the provided post. Wiggle off the end of the forearm, and then swap the hands out. Now, the head is one thing. I realized I haven't popped completely onto the ball joint. There we go. Yeah, to swap the hands out, they're super easy. The plastic is so forgiving on all of these figures. We're going to look at the comb also in a second, but just to change out the hands first. There we go. Okay. Putting Guile back down here for a second. I probably should have. You know what? I'll put on the dog tags as we change out the head sculpts. The figure does, as mentioned already, come included with the comb. I'm surprised, actually, that I haven't yet lost the comb from the other Guile, but you can see that they're exactly the same. Really, I don't expect the colors of the comb to be different. I mean, that wouldn't be the one thing I would really need this figure to be doing things differently than the original Guile. Having the exact same color combs, I'm fine with that. The comb, by the way, does fit into his hands, and then you can basically just bend the elbow up like this. Take the other hand, as I was kind of doing with the other review of him, and just kind of make it look like he's styling his hair. I actually kind of thought it was cool that in the Street Fighter, even though I really don't like... I like Street Fighter in the some sense that it had Jean-Claude Van Damme, because I'm just a big Van Damme fan. But really, though, the Street Fighter movie was not really good. I think the Mortal Kombat movie was a lot better. But the thing that was kind of cool, though, about it, in the final pose, even Van Damme was stopping to comb his hair. I don't really know how much he's able to comb his hair with so much product in his head. There goes the head again. But let's go ahead and just remove the comb. We'll put it off to the side here for a second. The head is one thing, though. I don't know why on the Player 2 release of it, it seems to come off way too easily. I really didn't have as much of the issue when it came to the original Guile. I mean, like, the head does still come off, but it doesn't come off as easily as the Player 2. I don't think that has really anything to do with the fact that they've used the mold again. I mean, this is really only the second time that they've used this mold. Speaking of the mold, though, the defaulted head for Guile is exactly the same. If you're expecting, though, that something was going to be done differently, no, same exact mold. This torso is also clearly the same. The arms, the lower legs, and even the boots are identical. I know one of the criticisms, though, of Guile was the fact that his broad shoulders were a little too big. I don't think they're necessarily too large. I think really, though, depending on what game you're looking at for Guile, Guile's shoulders seem to have increased the same way that his hair has increased in subsequent sequels. If you did want to change out, though, the head, the figure does also have the grimaced face, which is one thing really, too, with the Player 2s, and one thing to kind of make them unique from one another, is if you display then the figure with the grimaced face, and then you keep the original Guile just with a regular face, then at least there's enough differences between the figures. While I'm actually taking off the head here, I'm going to stop for a second. I'm going to show you guys the dog tag, because the dog tag really should be something that goes on the neck before you put the head back in place. The dog tag, the actual tags themselves are plastic, while the links of chains are real metal. Technically, it does open up. I don't really see the need for why they would have to have this open up, because technically, really, I mean, it's not like you have to open up the necklace to get it around his neck. All you really need to do is just take off the head and then put the necklace in place. It is one thing that kind of does make it look a little uglier. They probably did that, unfortunately, though, because in order to get the dog tags on there would, I guess, have to have been a place that they'd have to have the two parts of the necklace coming together. So that's probably why there is that connecting piece. I just think it would have looked a little bit nicer, a little more aesthetically pleasing if they just left that off completely. So let's take ourselves the alternate head sculpt here, pop it onto the neck, just make sure it's all the way on there. I think this one holds a little bit better. But one thing at least, though, is, I've said this in the other review of Guile, once you have the new head in place, whatever head you end up using, it is one thing at least to ensure that the necklace isn't going to fall off. Just to bring back in the original Guile here. Yeah, unfortunately, though, with this connecting piece for the necklace, I always just kind of feel myself having to fix it. It looks fine here, but the more you kind of turn the figure around, a lot of times the dog tags will come close to this, and it just looks a little ugly, to be honest. Again, like, the bodies are going to be exactly the same, so there's nothing at all different there. The joints, though, are also really quite tight. Even though I had a bit of an issue where the head was popping off frequently, the rest of the ball joints and everything else on this figure are super tight. The coloring, though, for the figure, again, you've got now blue instead of the green. The blue is actually surprisingly, even though, as one that really likes the original colors of these costumes, I would automatically default to the regular version of Guile. But there's something to be said for the fact that the blue, I think, just pops a little bit more using this mold. Again, if you're also a big fan of Jean-Claude Van Damme portraying the role of Guile in the Street Fighter film, some may actually like the idea of having him displayed on your shelf instead in the blue. Again, like, if you look at the tattoos, they're also placed in the same spot, on the same side there as well. And even though, like, the camo, if you're looking at the two, the camo does look like, it's almost the same pattern, but if you're looking really at the differences between the two, see how this shape, everybody please look at the squiggle. If you look at this squiggle right here, see how it's a little bit closer to the pocket. This squiggle right here, which would be the same, is a little bit further back. I think I would imagine it's probably just the way the figure came off the plant, and that if you're looking at the camo on your different Guiles, they probably will be changing in, not necessarily in the pattern, but whereabouts the pattern makes its way onto the pants. For the figure's articulation, though, for Guile, head's going to be on a ball joint, all still the same as the original. The head rotates all the way around. The head looks down. The head looks up, and it moves back and forth. I'm kind of just really worried about moving the head around in the worry that the head's going to fall off. But this one seems to do a better job of actually surprisingly staying in place. Not only does he also have a ball joint that's attaching to the head, but Guile, as with most Street Fighter figures, there's also a ball joint at the base of the neck, so you can move it up and down that way as well. So there's a good bit of motion that you can go with Guile. The one thing, though, the figure is a little bit lacking in, even though there really is a cut right here just above his abdomen, it's the hardest thing to do where you can actually move the torso. You can't really turn it necessarily, I'm sure for obvious reasons, that there's just so much sculpting in the way, but more so that the top of the torso is meant more, I'm guessing, for rocking back and forth. Turning it really is the issue, but moving it up and down this way and rocking it this way, you shouldn't have any issues at all. The arms rotate all the way around. With addition to that, they also have these socketed joints, so you can actually bring the arms in more closer, or you can also arch them back. So if you want to have them kind of, I guess, being knocked back, you can do that, certainly display it in that way. The figure does have a bicep swivel. In addition to that, he also has a double hinge in the elbow, and the hands rotate all the way around. Guile's legs still are the same as the original one, so again, you've got your ball joints working behind the scenes. If we walk our way up the thigh, about 3/4 of the way, the figure does have a swivel cut, so you can rotate them all the way around. In addition, he does also have a double hinge in the elbow, or a double hinge, I should say, in the knee. I always really have a hard time bending that second joint. The top one is fine, but getting the second bend, always a hard thing to do. The boots are separate from one another. Well, they are separate from the rest of the calf, so you can rotate those all the way around. He has an ankle pivot, and this version of Guile, like the original one, also does have an ankle rocker. In case you are curious, nothing has changed at all. There's a placement also of pegs on the bottoms of his boots. The original Guile also had that as well. Is it one of a Guile that I would replace with the original one? Like, if I had only the chance to pick up the one Guile, I think right away I would always go with the green. Just because when I think of Guile, and generally when I've played the games, unless there was a player 2, usually though I would always be playing as green Guile. For that reason and that reason alone, I would have been happier just to have the one Guile if I didn't come across getting the opportunity to get the second Guile. The one thing though, at least about the second Guile, is with having 2 different head sculpts like this, that you can make them different from one another. I wish, though, the differences weren't just done in colors, that they also would have factored that in as well, with including different weapons, different energy effects, other than doubling up a sonic boom each time. Now, actually, the deluxe version of the Player 2 Ken had actually an additional accessory, an energy attack that came included with the figure. I'm kind of surprised that they didn't do that also here with Guile, or just, again, swapping it out. Whether, though, we are going to be getting a deluxe version of Guile with a different color scheme down the road, time will, of course, only tell. Since we've seen, though, images of San Diego Comic-Con, for those that didn't get the chance to go and check out the convention, we already know that Jada Toys still is going all in when it comes to Street Fighter figures, so we're getting a lot of cool ones that we didn't know we were necessarily getting. I'm sure, though, with that, we're also going to be getting probably a couple of other color variations. Not only, though, has Guile been the one that's been a color variation, Bison is one that we're going to be looking at, not necessarily this week, but a Player 2 version of Bison will be coming also your way. There's been a couple of color variations, Player 2 costume colors for Chun-Li, and as well, there's also been Ryu and Ken. I think I'm kind of really happy just to stick with Guile and Bison, unless I just happen to come across a fairly inexpensive Chun-Li or decently priced Ryu, then I might just decide to pick that up. One thing, though, just before we actually wrap up this review, and one thing I always keep kind of forgetting, I did this also when we looked at Bison, I always seem to forget the inside box art. Now, when we looked, though, at Guile had the exact same background of the kind of, I guess is that the top of an aircraft carrier? And of course, you can always have your figures displayed that way inside the boxes. That is to say, of course, if you have the necessary space, I know some people probably don't have a lot of accommodating space to have on the shelf where you have, well, I mean, again, like how much space is really required, and then you have to do that every single figure. I don't ever really use these backgrounds, but I like the fact that Jada always takes the time to include it with all of their releases. I really loved it. This Guile could have come included with a flash kick or a somersault kick, similar in the way that Cammy came included with an energy effect piece that went onto the end of her leg. The thing, though, about Guile is that when he does the somersault kick, he leaps in the air. He does a full flip. that's not something that could easily have just been done by attaching a plastic piece on the end of his leg. I think in order to pull that off, they probably would have had to put a hole in Guile's leg and taken somewhat of a similar stand that holds the sonic boom and attach it on that way. I think by that, you're also having to deal with a brand new, stronger post. The way that the neck is adjusted now, I don't think it would have been strong enough to hold Guile if he's flipping in the air. And probably one of the reasons why they chose the safer route of including the sonic boom. Usually, though, when you get yourself a color variation of a character, head sculpts don't change all that much. I know McFarlane does that with his. But when usually, though, figures are released and they're just in different color scheme, usually a lot of the times the accessories stay the same. I can't fault necessarily that Jada Toys went the safer route and the cheaper route, obviously, of just releasing this figure. If he's going to be a Target exclusive, really what makes him the exclusive is not what he comes included with. It's the fact that his colors are different than the original. Would this necessarily replace the OG colors of Guile? I would say no. If I only had the budget and I was only able to get the one Guile, still I would want to get the green Guile. By far, that would be my favorite look to the character. There's though something to be said about the blue Guile. The extra little bit of pop of color that the blue brings to the table actually gives this color or this mold a little more life than the green one before. I can certainly understand why people are getting the color variations or the Player 2 versions of these figures. It's just a shame, though, that they're Target exclusives. Anybody knows me by now knows that as a Canadian collector, we don't have Target stores anywhere in our areas. Again, if you guys are interested and get this one for yourself, and let's say you're a Canadian collector, your best bets would likely be to check places like eBay, or if you can luck out, go to places like the Facebook selling group. I happened to stumble across one of the listings of Popeye the Toy Man. Luckily, he had the Player 2 version of Guile. I was kind of on the fence. Do I really need to get necessarily a Guile? Now seeing how good he looks in hand, the answer is yes. I did need to get another version, a Player 2 version of Guile. What do you guys think of this figure? Let me know down below in the comment section. Have you guys at all been collecting the P2 Player 2 versions of these figures, or are you just kind of happy to stick with the OGs? If you guys did also enjoy this video, you can do it a solid and throw it a like. You guys want to stick around for more so? I hope so. Hit the subscribe, turn on that bell. The bell, by the way, is always going to be the thing that gives the YouTube reminders that, yeah, you are more interested and you want to kind of see the videos that are coming through the pipeline. Not always is the case that if you don't turn on the bell notification, sometimes just the way that YouTube works right now. YouTube's a silly, silly thing. We don't really necessarily need to have a bell. YouTube felt the need to add the bell. And sometimes if you don't have that turned on, you don't always get the notifications of when new videos post. And certainly if you guys do want to stick around for more, they're at the very end, by the way, as well. There's going to be a playlist popping up at the very end. It'll also show you guys all the other Jada Toy Street Fighter figures that I've done in the past. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.